Did you know that every time you pick up your cell phone for no reason, your brain is sabotaging your future? Let's understand how to reverse this today. Picture this. You're sitting there, scrolling on your phone, right? TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, boom, 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 one video after another, and suddenly, bam, an hour's gone, maybe even two. You don't even remember what you were watching. Sound familiar? Whenever you do something that feels good, like eating your favorite food, hearing a compliment, or watching those viral videos, it goes, woo-hoo, let's do that again. It's what motivates you, keeps you going. But, and here's the twist, it's also what gets you hooked on the easy stuff. You know that feeling when you finish something hard, like a workout or studying? That's dopamine too, but it's earned dopamine, the kind that makes you feel like a total rock star. The problem is, with things like social media, your brain gets that same little woo-hoo without any effort. It's like junk food for your mind. Here's where the wisdom of Buddhism shines, right? In Buddhism, they talk about the monkey mind, a restless, jumping from branch to branch kind of mind. That's basically your brain on dopamine overload. It's always looking for the next shiny thing, the next quick hit of pleasure. But here's the thing, Buddhists also teach that real peace comes from training your mind to focus, to slow down, to stay grounded in the moment. Think of it this way. Imagine if, instead of jumping from video to video, you could sit quietly and actually enjoy the present moment. Sounds simple, but it's a game changer. And here's the cool part. Neuroscience backs this up. Your brain isn't just stuck like this forever. It's plastic, which means it can change. But to rewire it, you've got to retrain your dopamine system. Think of it like going to the gym, but for your brain. Instead of giving in to every little ping and notification, you start choosing activities that take more effort but bring deeper rewards. So, what if I told you that you could get off this dopamine roller coaster? That you could stop feeling like you're constantly chasing something and start feeling truly satisfied instead? Stick with me, because in this video, I'm going to show you how. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to sit down and get started on something important, like studying, writing, or even just cleaning up, but instead you found yourself reaching for your phone just for a second, right? And then, boom, 20 minutes later you're in some deep rabbit hole watching videos about, I don't know, baby goats wearing pajamas. It's wild and frustrating. What's happening here? Why is it so hard to stick to the things that actually matter? It all comes down to this tricky little cycle, the cycle of instant gratification. Let me break it down. Your brain is wired to love shortcuts. It's like, wait, you're telling me I can get a reward right now with no effort? Sweet, let's do that instead. And that's exactly what social media, snacks, shopping, and even those endless next episode buttons on streaming platforms are designed for. They're handing out tiny hits of pleasure on a silver platter, no questions asked. But here's the catch. When you're constantly feeding your brain these quick hits of dopamine, it starts to forget how to wait for anything. Your patience, out the window. Your ability to focus on long-term goals, that gets weaker too. Neuroscience calls this procrastination by design. Your brain literally rewires itself to prioritize easy now over better later. It's like digging a mental groove, and the deeper it gets, the harder it is to climb out. That's why tasks like studying, working, or even reading a book suddenly feel so boring. They're not giving your brain that quick buzz anymore. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Buddhism talks a lot about this cycle, but they don't call it dopamine, obviously. They call it attachment. It's this constant grasping for something to make us feel better in the moment, whether it's a scroll on your feed or that extra cookie after dinner. And what do they say about attachment? That it leads to suffering. Not the big dramatic suffering, but that low-key nagging feeling of, why do I never feel satisfied? Both neuroscience and Buddhism agree. This cycle can be broken. It starts with awareness. You've got to notice when you're reaching for those quick rewards and ask yourself, what am I really looking for right now? Am I bored, stressed, avoiding something hard? Just hitting pause for a second can help you break the autopilot mode. So, let's flip the script. Instead of letting instant gratification run the show, what if you took back the reins? What if you started choosing challenges that actually make you proud when you're done? Yeah, it won't feel as exciting in the moment, but trust me, the payoff is worth it. And in just a bit, I'll show you how to make those hard tasks easier and even enjoyable. But first, let's talk about why the way you start your day might be the secret weapon you've been missing. Let's talk about mornings, because, believe it or not, how you start your day sets the tone for everything that comes after. No pressure, right? But seriously, if you're waking up, grabbing your phone, and immediately diving into notifications or social media, you're basically throwing your brain into the dopamine deep end. It's like giving it dessert before breakfast. Fun at first, but not great for the long haul. Here's why this matters. When you start your day with something that's effortless, like scrolling, binge-watching, or even hitting snooze, you're training your brain to seek easy rewards right out of the gate. And what happens next? The rest of your day feels harder. Sitting down to work or tackling a tough task becomes this huge mental hurdle because your brain's already in lazy mode. It's like trying to run a marathon after eating a stack of pancakes. Not ideal. But, and here's the good part, you can totally flip this script. There's this concept in neuroscience called priming. Basically, the first things you do in your day have a ripple effect on how your brain approaches everything that follows. So if you start with something challenging, something that requires effort but gives you a sense of accomplishment, you're telling your brain, hey, this is how we roll today. That's why practices like meditation, chanting, or even mindful breathing are often done first thing. It's not about being perfect, it's about starting with clarity and focus instead of chaos. So, what does this look like in real life? Let's say, instead of checking your phone first thing, you spend 10 minutes journaling or meditating. Maybe you go for a quick walk, stretch, or even just sit quietly with your coffee, really tasting it instead of rushing through it. These small, intentional actions create what I like to call earned dopamine. It's that satisfaction you get from doing something meaningful, not just easy. And it sticks with you way longer than the buzz from a TikTok video. Here's a little trick. Pick one thing that feels like a challenge, but also lights you up a bit. Maybe it's reading a few pages of a book, writing down your goals for the day, or even just making your bed. Yes, that counts. The key is to start small. You don't need a perfect morning routine with 15 steps. Just one intentional action can make all the difference. And trust me, once you get a taste of that calm, focused energy, you'll wonder how you ever started your day any other way. Because here's the thing, your brain wants to work for its rewards. It's wired to feel good when you've earned something. All you've got to do is show it the way. So tomorrow, when your alarm goes off, resist the urge to grab your phone. Instead, ask yourself, what's one thing I can do right now to set the tone for my day? Give it a shot. And if you're thinking, okay, sounds nice, but how do I handle all those distractions later in the day? Don't worry, we're about to tackle that next. Now, let's talk about distractions. Because let's be real, they're everywhere. Notifications, endless tabs open on your browser, that little voice in your head saying, maybe I should check Instagram real quick. It's like the modern world is one giant obstacle course for your focus. And here's the kicker, your brain is not naturally good at ignoring them. In fact, it loves them. Why? Because distractions are easy dopamine hits. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you're trying to focus on something. Let's say you're writing an email or working on a project. Suddenly, a notification pops up. Ping! Your brain goes, oh, what's that? And boom, you're off. 5 minutes later, you're scrolling, you've forgotten about the email, and now you're watching a cat play the piano. Sound familiar? So if you feel like focusing is getting harder, It's not your fault. It's just your brain doing what it's been trained to do. But here's the thing. You can retrain it. This is where both neuroscience and Buddhism come in clutch. Neuroscience shows us that we can strengthen our focus like a muscle, and Buddhism, it's all about creating the right conditions for that focus to thrive. Think about this. In Buddhism, monks practice something called guarding the gates of the mind. It's this idea that you can't control every thought or distraction, but you can create an environment that makes it easier to stay present. And honestly, that's exactly what we need in today's world, our own version of digital mindfulness. Here's how you can start. First, declutter your space. If your phone is sitting on your desk, staring at you with its tempting glow, move it. Out of sight, out of mind. Better yet, put it in another room. This simple act creates what I like to call a friction barrier. It makes giving in to distractions just a little harder, and that's often enough to keep you on track. Second, set clear boundaries. Use tools like Do Not Disturb mode, time blocking, or apps that block social media. Think of these as training wheels for your focus. They're not permanent, but they'll help you build the habits you need. And third, practice what Buddhists call single-pointed attention. It's just a fancy way of saying, do one thing at a time. Multitasking feels productive, but in reality, it's a fast track to mental burnout. Instead, pick one task, set a timer, and give it your full attention, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes. You'll be amazed at how much you can accomplish when your brain isn't juggling a million things. Now, I get it. You might be thinking, this all sounds great, but I've tried to focus before, and it just doesn't stick. That's totally normal. Focus isn't about being perfect, it's about building resilience over time. Every time you resist a distraction, even for a few seconds, you're strengthening that mental muscle. So, the next time you feel that pull to check your phone or hop onto another tab, pause. Take a deep breath, and remember, you're in control. Not the notifications, not the algorithms, you. And trust me, once you start creating these barriers and reclaiming your focus, you'll realize how much time and energy you've been giving away to things that don't really matter. All right, so now you're probably wondering, okay, I'm building focus, but how do I make these long, challenging tasks less overwhelming? Don't worry, we're diving into that next, and it's going to change the way you approach hard work forever. Stay with me. All right, let's dive into the good stuff. How to make those long, challenging tasks feel less impossible. Because let's face it, even when you've cleared distractions and hyped yourself up, sometimes just starting can feel like climbing a mountain barefoot. But here's the secret. It's not about working harder, it's about working smarter. Neuroscientists call this chunking. Basically, your brain loves bite-sized tasks. When something feels overwhelming, it's because your brain is looking at the whole thing, like staring at an entire buffet when all you need is one plate. Chunking breaks that buffet into smaller, digestible pieces so it feels doable. Here's an example. Say you've got a big project. Instead of thinking, I have to finish this entire thing today, you tell yourself, okay, first, I'm just going to write the opening paragraph. Boom. Way less intimidating, right? And here's the magic part. Once you finish that first chunk, your brain gets a tiny dopamine reward. It's like a pat on the back that says, hey, you're doing great, and that makes starting the next chunk easier. It's a feedback loop, but this time it's working for you instead of against you. Now let's add a Buddhist twist to this. In Buddhism, there's this idea of being present in the moment. It's not about rushing to the finish line. It's about fully engaging with the step you're on. Think about monks sweeping a temple courtyard. They don't think, ugh, I have to sweep this entire place. They think, I'm sweeping this spot right here. It's meditative. And guess what? That focus makes the work feel lighter, not heavier. Here's a little trick to make this practical. Pair chunking with mindfulness. Before you start, take a deep breath and say to yourself, I'm just going to focus on this one piece, nothing else. When your mind starts to wander, and it will, gently bring it back. No judgment. No frustration. Just, oops, back to the task. Over time, this becomes second nature, and those big projects lose their scary edge. Another game changer, the concept of discomfort training. Yeah, I know, it doesn't sound fun, but hear me out. Your brain is wired to avoid discomfort, right? That's why it tries to steer you toward easier, more pleasurable things like scrolling or snacking. But you can actually train your brain to handle discomfort and even thrive in it. Start small. Maybe it's setting a timer for 10 minutes and committing to work without stopping, even if it feels hard. Think of it like lifting weights for your brain. At first, it's tough, but with practice, you get stronger. Over time, you'll find that sticking with challenging tasks becomes easier, not because the tasks change, but because you do. And here's the best part. Every time you push through a little discomfort, you're rewiring your brain. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity. It's your brain's way of saying, oh, we're doing hard things now. Cool, let me build the pathways to make that easier for you. It's like upgrading your mental software, no subscription needed. So the next time you're staring down a big, scary task, remember, break it into chunks, stay present, and embrace a little discomfort. It's not about being perfect or superhuman. It's about showing up and taking it one step at a time. And trust me, the sense of accomplishment you'll feel afterward, that's the kind of dopamine hit that's earned. It's time to talk about training your brain like a muscle and building mental resilience. All right, let's get into it. Training your brain like a muscle. Because just like your body gets stronger with regular exercise, your mind can become sharper, more focused, and more resilient. And the best part, you don't need fancy tools or hours of time to make it happen, just consistency and the right mindset. Think of your brain as a muscle. If you don't challenge it, it stays weak. But every time you push through discomfort, resist a distraction, or focus on something challenging, you're giving it a workout. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity, and it's one of the coolest things about your brain. It's always adapting. Every time you practice a new habit or skill, you're literally rewiring it, building stronger connections. It's like upgrading your mental circuits, one repetition at a time. Here's a great way to start. Practice micro-challenges. These are tiny, manageable tasks that push you just enough to grow without overwhelming you. For example, try setting a timer for 5 minutes and commit to doing one thing. Whether it's writing, meditating, or even just sitting in silence, when the timer goes off, ask yourself, can I go 5 more? Most of the time you'll find you can. And if not, no problem, you still did 5 minutes, and that's a win. Now let's bring in some Buddhist wisdom. In Buddhism, there's a practice called walking meditation. It's exactly what it sounds like, slowly walking while focusing on each step. Sounds simple, right? But the point isn't the walking itself, it's training your mind to stay present. With every step, you gently guide your attention back to the movement, the feeling of your feet touching the ground. And if your mind wanders, that's okay. You just notice it and come back. This idea of gently bringing your focus back is exactly what you need when training your brain. You're not forcing it. You're not beating yourself up when it strays. You're just practicing over and over until focus becomes second nature. And the beauty of it? Every time you refocus, you're strengthening those neural pathways, just like lifting a weight at the gym. But let's be real, training your brain isn't always fun. Sometimes it feels really hard. That's where a concept from both neuroscience and Buddhism can help. Self-compassion. Yep, cutting yourself some slack. When you hit a rough patch, when you're distracted, frustrated, or ready to give up, don't get mad at yourself. Instead, think, this is part of the process. Growth isn't supposed to feel easy. And remember, just like with physical exercise, rest is part of the process too. Your brain needs downtime to recover and consolidate what it's learned. So, if you've been grinding away, don't feel guilty about taking a break. Go for a walk, meditate, or even just stare out the window for a bit. That space is where the magic happens. It's where your brain processes and strengthens those new connections. So, here's the big takeaway. Your brain is like a muscle, and every time you practice focus, resist a distraction, or face a challenge, you're making it stronger. Start small, celebrate progress, and don't forget to rest. Because over time, these little efforts add up to something huge. A mind that's resilient, focused, and ready for whatever life throws your way. And speaking of life's challenges, there's one more thing we need to talk about. The ultimate goal of all this work. How do you not just build focus, but also find a deeper sense of fulfillment and peace? That's where reprogramming your mental system comes in. And trust me, it's a game changer. Let's dive into that next. So here we are, the big picture, reprogramming your mental system. Because, let's be honest, it's not just about staying focused or checking tasks off your to-do list. What we're really after is a sense of balance, fulfillment, and peace in a world that feels, well, a little chaotic sometimes. And here's the thing, both neuroscience and Buddhism agree on this. To find that balance, you have to rewire how your brain chases rewards. Let's break it down. Right now, most of us are stuck in what I like to call reactive mode. Something pops up, a notification, an ad, a craving, and we're off, chasing that little burst of dopamine like a dog chasing a tennis ball. But here's the problem. This cycle keeps you running after things instead of letting you take control. It's like being a passenger in your own brain instead of the driver. The first step to reprogramming this, shifting from reaction to intention. And this is where Buddhism's concept of mindfulness comes in clutch. Mindfulness isn't just about sitting cross-legged in silence, though that's great too. It's about noticing your thoughts and behaviors as they happen without judgment, so you can choose how to respond. Think of it as hitting the pause button on your autopilot. For example, let's say you're scrolling through your phone and you notice that little itch to keep going, just one more video. Instead of giving in right away, pause. Ask yourself, what am I really looking for here? Am I bored, avoiding something, looking for a quick pick-me-up? That tiny moment of awareness is powerful. It interrupts the cycle and gives you a chance to make a conscious choice. Now, from a neuroscience perspective, this awareness is pure gold. Every time you pause and choose intentionally, you're weakening the old reactive pathways in your brain and strengthening new ones. It's like carving a new trail through a forest. At first, it's slow going, but the more you walk it, the clearer and easier it gets. But awareness is just the beginning. The next step is creating a system, a structure that supports your new habits and keeps you on track, even when motivation is low. Here's where Buddhism's concept of right effort comes into play. It's about finding that sweet spot between pushing yourself and being kind to yourself. Not too much, not too little, just enough effort to keep growing. Start by setting up small, consistent practices. Maybe it's 10 minutes of meditation every morning, or journaling about your goals at the end of the day. Maybe it's as simple as turning off notifications during work hours. These little rituals act like guardrails, keeping you aligned with your intentions, even when life gets busy. And here's a key piece. Celebrate progress, not perfection. In Buddhism, there's a teaching about the middle way. Not being too rigid, but not being too loose either. If you slip up, and you will because you're human, don't beat yourself up. Instead, think, okay, what can I learn from this? Growth isn't a straight line, it's a spiral. Every step forward, even a small one, is worth celebrating. Finally, let's talk about why this all matters. When you reprogram your mental system, when you break free from the chase for instant gratification, you're not just improving your focus or productivity, you're creating space. Space to be present. Space to connect with others. Space to appreciate the little things, like the sound of rain or the taste of your favorite tea. And that space, that's where peace lives. That's where fulfillment starts to grow. So, here's your challenge. Start small. Pick one habit to focus on, one practice to anchor your day. And when your mind wanders, or you feel the pull of old distractions, just pause. breathe. Remind yourself that every choice you make is a step toward the person you're becoming. And that, my friend, is the real win. Not just a focused mind, but a life that feels truly aligned. Now, let's put all of this together and explore how to sustain these changes for the long haul. Because this isn't just a quick fix, it's a journey. Let's keep going. So now we've come to the part that really ties it all together. How do you sustain this journey? Because here's the truth. Real change doesn't come from a single aha moment. It comes from showing up every day and choosing your new path over and over again. And yeah, that sounds a bit daunting, but don't worry. We're going to break it down into simple, actionable steps. First, let's talk about why consistency is so powerful. Neuroscience has a term for this, Hebb's law. Basically, it says neurons that fire together, wire together. Every time you repeat a new behavior, whether it's meditating, journaling, or resisting a distraction, you're strengthening the connections in your brain that make that behavior easier. It's like practicing a song on the piano. At first, it feels clunky and awkward, but eventually it becomes second nature. Your brain learns through repetition. Now, here's where Buddhism offers some game-changing wisdom. There's a teaching called small moments, many times. It's the idea that transformation doesn't happen in giant leaps. It happens in tiny, consistent actions. And honestly, that's such a relief, right? You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You just need to take small, intentional steps and keep taking them. So, how do you make consistency stick? Start by creating rituals. Think of them as little anchors that keep you grounded, no matter what else is happening in your life. Maybe it's starting your day with 5 minutes of mindfulness, or ending it by writing down 3 things you're grateful for. These rituals don't have to be complicated. They just have to be yours. Here's a pro tip. Attach your new habit to something you already do. This is called habit stacking. For example, if you always make coffee in the morning, use that as your cue to meditate while it brews. Or if you brush your teeth every night, hopefully, use that as your reminder to reflect on your day. By pairing a new habit with an existing one, you're making it easier for your brain to remember. But let's be real. There will be days when you don't feel like it. Days when distractions win, when motivation is nowhere to be found, when you're just tired. And that's okay. Remember the Buddhist principle of impermanence. Everything is always changing. Your energy, your focus, your mood. The key is not to let one bad day derail your progress. Instead, treat it like a bump in the road. You stumble, you get back up, and you keep going. Here's another tool to keep you going. Track your progress. And no, I'm not talking about some fancy app or detailed spreadsheet, unless that's your vibe. Even something as simple as putting a check mark on a calendar each day you stick to your habit can be incredibly motivating. Why? Because you can see your growth. And when you miss a day, it's no big deal. You just pick up where you left off. And finally, this is a big one, celebrate your wins. Like seriously, give yourself some credit. We're so quick to focus on what we didn't do or how far we still have to go, but every step forward is worth celebrating. Finished a week of meditation, treat yourself to your favorite tea, resisted a major distraction, take a moment to feel proud. These little celebrations reinforce your progress and make the journey more enjoyable. At the end of the day, sustaining change isn't about being perfect, it's about being persistent. It's about showing up for yourself even when it's hard, and trusting that these small efforts will add up to something huge, because they will. Every time you choose mindfulness over autopilot, focus over distraction, intention over reaction, you're rewriting the story of your life. So here's my challenge for you. Start today. Pick one habit, one ritual, and commit to it for the next week. Just 7 days. And as you do, remember, this isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more you. A you that's focused, present, and aligned with the things that matter most. And that's the beauty of this whole process. It's not just about building a better brain or mastering your dopamine system. It's about creating a life that feels truly fulfilling, a life you're excited to wake up to every morning. You've got this. Now let's look at the final piece of this puzzle, how all these little changes add up to transform your life. Because here's the thing, this journey isn't just about focus, mindfulness, or even mastering your habits. It's about living with intention. It's about taking back control of your mind so you can lead a life that feels meaningful, purposeful, and honestly yours. And here's where things get really exciting. When you're no longer driven by distractions or short-term rewards, you have the clarity to focus on what actually matters to you. And that looks different for everyone. Maybe it's deepening your relationships, diving into a creative passion, growing your career, or simply finding more moments of peace in your day. Whatever it is, it's yours to define. There's a concept in Buddhism called right view. It's the idea that when you see clearly, when your mind isn't clouded by cravings or distractions, you can make choices that align with your true self. Neuroscience backs this up too. When your brain isn't stuck in reactive mode, your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning, decision-making, and creativity, takes the wheel. You're no longer at the mercy of impulses, you're steering the ship. Now let's get practical. How do you stay connected to this bigger vision for your life? One word: reflection. In Buddhism, reflection is a cornerstone of practice. It's about regularly looking inward and asking, am I living in alignment with my values? Am I spending my time and energy on what truly matters? And guess what? Neuroscience agrees. Studies show that self-reflection strengthens your ability to make intentional choices and stay focused on long-term goals. Here's a simple practice you can try. At the end of each day, take 5 minutes to check in with yourself. Ask questions like, what went well today? Where did I get off track? What can I do differently tomorrow? Write it down or just think it through. It's not about being perfect. It's about staying aware. This tiny habit keeps your compass pointing toward your true north. And that shift, it changes everything. Here's a challenge for you. Each day, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be big. A good cup of coffee, a kind word from a friend, a moment of quiet. Over time, this practice rewires your brain to notice and savor the positive, even when life gets tough. But the real magic? When you combine all these practices, mindfulness, gratitude, reflection, they don't just change your habits, they change you. They help you become the kind of person who approaches life with calm, focus, and intention. Someone who can handle challenges without being thrown off course. Someone who doesn't just react to the world, but creates their own path through it. And isn't that the ultimate goal? To wake up each day feeling connected to your purpose, grounded in your values, and excited about what's ahead. That's what you're building here. Not just a better mind, but a richer, fuller life. So here's my parting thought for you. This isn't the end of the journey, it's just the beginning. You've started something powerful, and now it's up to you to keep going. Keep choosing mindfulness. Keep training your focus, keep reflecting on what matters, and most importantly, keep showing up for yourself, because every little step you take is a step toward the life you deserve. You've got everything you need inside you. Now go out there and live it. All right, let's bring it all home. Here's the thing, every practice we've talked about, mindfulness, focus, breaking free from distractions, they're all pieces of a bigger puzzle. And when you put them together, what you're really doing is creating freedom. Freedom from being controlled by cravings, by stress, by that constant feeling of not enough. Freedom doesn't mean life gets easier. It means you get stronger. It means you face challenges with clarity instead of overwhelm, with intention instead of avoidance. It means you stop chasing and start living, and that's what this whole journey is really about. Let me leave you with a little story. In Buddhist tradition, there's this beautiful parable about a monk crossing a river. He builds a raft out of branches and vines, carefully tying it together to carry him to the other side. Once he reaches the far shore, he looks back at the raft and thinks, This raft was so helpful. Maybe I should carry it with me. But then he realizes, if he clings to the raft, it will only weigh him down. The purpose of the raft was to help him cross, not to hold on to forever. Think about that for a second. The practices you're learning here, they're your raft. They're tools to help you navigate the currents of life. But once you've integrated them, they're not something you have to obsess over or cling to. They become part of who you are, effortless, natural. You won't need to think, I should meditate or I should focus. You'll just be someone who lives with clarity and intention. Now let's zoom out for a moment. Picture your life a year from now. What's changed? Maybe you're more present with your family or more confident in your work. Maybe you're taking on challenges that used to scare you or simply savoring the little things that used to pass you by. That future isn't some distant fantasy. It's a result of the small, consistent choices you start making today. Transformation doesn't come from doing everything perfectly. It comes from starting, stumbling, and starting again. It comes from showing up, even when it's messy. Because every time you choose to pause instead of react, to focus instead of distract, to reflect instead of rush, you're rewiring not just your brain, but your life. So as we wrap this up, let me ask you, what's one thing you can take from this video and put into practice today? Maybe it's setting a timer for 10 minutes of deep work. Maybe it's trying a mindful moment before you grab your phone in the morning. Or maybe it's just pausing right now to take a deep breath and remind yourself you're on this journey. And that's enough. And remember, you're not alone. The path to clarity and balance is one we all walk together. Every time you take a step forward, you're not just helping yourself. You're adding a little more light to the world around you. And that's powerful. So thank you for spending this time with me, for diving deep into these ideas, and for choosing to invest in you. I'm so excited to see where this journey takes you. And hey, if this video resonated with you, let's keep the conversation going. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, or tell me about one thing you're going to try this week. Let's grow together. Until next time, take care of yourself, stay present, and keep building that life of freedom, focus, and fulfillment. You've got this.